Hello, Heads Up fans. You are watching the Heads Up video blog for Pillowman. You are watching one of our sort of final rehearsals before we take a kind of a hiatus from rehearsing this show. You're about to witness one of the most pivotal scenes of the show. This is the whole show. We're gonna blow our load right now, listeners. Watchers, not listeners. So, I hope you enjoy. Maybe you'll get to catch up with some of the cast members afterwards. Maybe we'll do some interviews. I don't know. We're cool like that. All right? So, watch this.
Once upon a time, there lived a little boy whose parents showered him with nothing but love, kindness, affection, all that stuff. The little boy wanted for nothing. He had his own little room and a little house in a pretty, pretty forest. All the toys and the games, the paints and the papers and pens were all his. All the seeds of creativity were implanted in him from an early age, and it was writing that became his first love. He wrote short stories, all sweet little things about angels and bears and piglets and so forth. Some of them were good. You know, some of them were very, very good. His parents' experiment had worked. The first part of his parents' experiment had worked. It was on the eve of his 7th birthday that the nightmares first began, when he heard the horrible sounds emanating from the thick brick walls of the next door room that had always been kept locked and bolted for reasons the boy was never quite sure of, but never questioned, until he heard horrifying sounds emanating from its thick brick walls on a nightly basis. Sounds I heard last night, Mama.
Nothing but your wonderful but overactive imagination.
Oh. Do all boys my age hear such sounds of abomination nightly?
No, just the extraordinarily talented ones.
Oh. Cool. But the sounds continued, as did the nightmares. But his stories, they got better and better and better, due to all the love and encouragement, as is often the case. But they got darker and darker and darker, due to the constant sound of child torture, which is also often the case. It was the eve of his 14th birthday. Now, he was waiting for the results of a short story competition that he was shortlisted for, when a note slipped out from the next door room. Pulled it out, and he read it, and it said,
"I have loved you and tortured me for 7 straight years for no other reason than as an artistic experiment. An artistic experiment which has worked. You don't write stories about little green pigs anymore, do you?"
The note was signed.
Your brother.
And the note was written in blood. He axed into the next door room to find his parents in there. His father making drill noises, his mother making the muffled screams of a gagged child. There was a little pot of pig's blood between them. And his father asked him to read the other side of the note. He turned it over to find that he had won the short story competition and the $50 first prize. They all had a good laugh. And his stories got better and better and better. And he thanked his parents for the weirdness they had put him through. They soon moved house, And when the writer was just about to publish his first story, he decided he'd go home, to his childhood home, in celebration. He walked into his old room, and all the papers, the pens, and the toys, and the games were still there. And then he walked into the next door room. He saw that old pot of pig's blood, the old drill, dusty cords and chains, and he just laughed at the insanity of the idea of it all. He laughed until he found the corpse of a 14-year-old boy, not a bone of which wasn't broken or burned, in whose hand there lay a story scrawled in blood. A story that could only have been written under the most sickening of circumstances. And it was the sweetest, gentlest thing that he'd ever read. And what was worse, it was better than anything he himself had ever written. He burned the story, and he buried his brother back up, and he locked that room, and he never told anybody what he had seen that day. Not his parents, not his publishers, not anyone. His parents' experiment was complete. Couturian's story, The Writer and the Writer's Brother, ended there in a fashionably downbeat mode, without hinting at the more self-incriminating details of the true story. That when the 14-year-old birthday boy axed into the next door room, it was his brother he found in there, very much alive, but brain damaged beyond repair. And that night, Couturian snuck into his parents' room. And while they were sleeping, he held a pillow over his father's head for a little while. And after waking her just long enough so she could see her dead blue husband, he held a pillow over his mother's head for a little while, too.
All right, so what you just witnessed was The Writer and the Writer's Brother, which is a story by Couturian K. Couturian. He is the writer who is being interrogated by the police about his short stories. As you can see, they're kind of gruesome, kind of gross. So let's hear from some of the cast members that you just saw perform.
In the play, Couturian says that he hates any writing that's even vaguely autobiographical. He says that anybody who writes only about what they know is too terrible to make up anything better. Well, the writer and the writer's brother in the play is basically the inciting action of the story. It's kind of a flashback because you see Couturian being interrogated and you wonder, you see that there's a hint of kind of a disturbed nature about him.
The thing that's really interesting about the story is that every single character is really messed up in their own way, and for certain reasons, which, you know, and pretty much every single character, their background is revealed, and it's revealed as to why they're so messed up, and their stories are just so fascinating, and like the details of where Couturian got his stories from are just messed up and terrifying.
And then you see the story, The Writer and the Writer's Brother, being played out, and you really get to find out what makes him tick and why he writes these dark stories and why he behaves the way he does and why he has such a strong relationship with his brother Michael.
I play Michael in The Pillowman, and Michael is... He has brain damage, and, you know, as an actor, I wouldn't want to try to act like I have brain damage. because a lot of people, when they attempt something like that, they fall into stereotypes and cliches, and then it just looks fake or silly. So, you know, for this process, it was really tricky working with just being true to myself and allowing, you know, the authors, the writers' words and my physical movement, my physical score, to really do the trick to make it seem like I am brain damaged. And then that begs the question, you know, what does it mean to be brain damaged? Because there's a lot of individuals out there that do have brain damage. It's a serious thing, and for a lot of them, it just affects their memory. But for Michael, he was tortured, you know, beyond repair. So it affects him a great deal. Not just his memory, but he's almost stuck in a childlike state permanently. And, you know, it was a lot of fun to play with, but it was also kind of a struggle dealing with that inside of myself and really exploring the depths of who I am and what this would mean if I was in these circumstances.
Each play has its own process based off of the play, and I think based off of the chemistry of each company or cast. And the process for Pillowman is it was an interesting process because it was like,
there are several stories that get told throughout the play, and some of them get told in what we would call the real world, in the interrogation room, where one of the detectives is either reading through a story or asking Katurian to tell the story.
You have the reality, the group who does the interrogation, and then you have the family group.
I have tended to play the abusive, evil father type of character, which has been very fun to work with.
We did our own separate thing for a while, and actually there were numerous rehearsals where the reality group got to see what the family group was up to, and we had no idea what was going on in reality world. So combining them was really, really interesting when we first did that.
It's been really interesting working on acting out the stories. I'm one of the 3 actors who acts out each and every story. And it's just been really interesting to dive into every single character.
We obviously had a very different way that we went about getting the feeling of each scene and story.
It's been really fascinating. And the thing that was really interesting about the rehearsal process is that it's not just like every single story we get up there and we act through it. Some of them are like that, but then others are just not as literal the way we act them out, or they're more figurative.
There's one where in the process where we did an entire sequence forward with a related story that everybody kind of knows that Katurian's story happens to be somewhat about. And then we took that sequence and we did it backwards, which kind of in an eerie sort of way fits in with Katurian's story, and that was really interesting to see.
But you're not just watching the same actors get up, they act out the story while the story is being read. That's not what it is. It's different every time, and you're going to get something new every time you see a story being acted out.
It's interesting to be working in a strictly naturalistic kind of way in the interrogation scenes where it's very physical and you're thinking about real life consequences, and then being able to transition into a kind of a situation where Katurian gets to remember what happened when he was younger, but I also get to kind of tell a story in that. So I find that incredibly fascinating and really fun as an actor to work on.
I really hope that you enjoy the show and are not too disturbed by it.
It's a dark play, but it's fun.
Thanks for watching.
Come see the Pillowman.
www.headsupproductions.net.
Really?
Go to www.headsupproductions.net.